into a business.
Talent is preeminent.
Get first-hand success stories from seasoned entrepreneurs only on Build Your Own Business.
This is Build Your Own Business. Powered
by Oze. Make money with Oze.
This is Build Your Own Business by Oze. I am Wole Famirewa, and welcome to the program as we speak to accomplished entrepreneurs in Nigeria who are doing incredible things in a variety of sectors, and they will be sharing their experience and in the process provide some valuable insight that you can use to build your own business. Okay, let's get started now, and we open up with a short bio of our guest today.
Iyinoluwa Samuel Aboyeji, born March 28, 1991, is a Nigerian entrepreneur. He is a co-founder of Andela and was the former managing director of Flutterwave. Aboyeji was cited as one of the top 100 most influential Africans by New African magazine in 2019. Iyinoluwa Aboyeji co-founded 2 successful startups in Africa before launching Flutterwave in 2017. With $15.7 million in funding, the payments company is empowering Pan-African merchants to execute businesses on global scale, processing $1.2 billion in transactions so far. Aboyeji's previous startup Andela gained attention when the venture received $24 million in funding from Mark Zuckerberg. Aboyeji is the general partner and co-founder of Future Africa, a platform that provides capital, coaching, and community for mission-driven innovators. After co-founding Future Africa, he served as the Deputy Director General from Madam Obi Ezekwesili's 2019 presidential campaign. He also helped in building Andela and Flutterwave, 2 of Africa's technology companies. He is also the co-founder and chairman of the Talent City Incorporation, a construction company. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we present Iyinoluwa Samuel Aboyeji.
Welcome back to our program as we begin our conversation with Iyinoluwa Aboyeji, an accomplished entrepreneur in the tech space. It is always a pleasure to talk to you. Let's get started. And maybe you can begin by just giving us your assessment of the tech space in Nigeria as an investment opportunity, and potentially also speak to what you think are the potential pitfalls for those who are going into it. No doubt it's a sector that pretty much covers any industry, but give me your thoughts on the opportunity and pitfalls in your view.
I mean, when I think about technology, particularly in Nigeria and on the continent, I think the most important thing to keep in mind is that over the next 50 years and 30 years, we're going to be more than half of the world's working population. Yet today, we're just 3% of the world's GDP. And bridging the gap between our population and our productivity is the most important and the most interesting opportunity remaining on the planet from a wealth creation and value creation perspective. Now, bridging that gap is going to be impossible without technology. And we have a rich history of leveraging technology to leapfrog challenges, to build new industries, and to create value across the continent. I use the mobile phone as the most prominent example of this, right? In 2000, you had just about 100,000 fixed lines in Nigeria, right? Not a lot of mobile phone usage, nothing. And fast forward now, just over 20 years later, the highest cap company that has made over $1 trillion a year is a technology company, right? And you have mobile phone penetration in the hundreds of millions, and you have an entirely new industries that have been built on top of this access, including the fintech, the logistics tech, the ed tech, the agri tech, just off the back of this one technology. And also you have a company that has IPO'd on the New York Stock Exchange because of providing the hardcore infrastructure for this industry. And that's just one thing. So imagine if you could have a similar explosion over the next 20 years across multiple different industries, because we have better infrastructure, better data, better technology, better analysis, better talents. I mean, imagine what is possible in terms of helping the center Africa as the global productivity capital of the world. That's why technology is necessary. Now, are there pitfalls? There are many pitfalls, because as you can imagine, with every big technology or revolutionary wave, you would always have a bit of over exuberance. And there's always that challenge, right? Where even with previous waves in Africa, when it comes to investments or anything, this is not the first technology exuberance wave in Africa. I mean, we've had an experience from even the 1990s to the early 2000s. There have been many companies that have come and gone or come and survived as a result of technology. And so for us to pretend that this is brand new is not real. But however, I think there is a bigger opportunity to build real value with this wave, right? And all it requires is focused entrepreneurship, focused entrepreneurs, mission-driven entrepreneurs who are choosing to create value, not just pump fluff and behave in unethical ways, or just pump and dump or make money for themselves, but are really looking to solve some of the hardest problems in our society by leveraging the power of technology.
Right, but coming back to the point about pitfalls, and I'm looking at this from the perspective of a person that is getting invested in tech.
Yes.
Lessons learned from your side, and when you observe everyone trying to be unicorn, trying to get out there and do something special, what are, in your view, the typical errors, mistakes people typically make with tech?
I think there's a tendency for people to get excited too easily, right? There isn't a lot of introspection about whether this is actually transforming people's lives or whether this is actually having an impact on people, right? It's just all about the numbers, even if they don't mean anything, right? And I think what people have to get used to is, for us, for example, at the Fund for Africa's Future, which is an investment firm, we don't invest until we've spoken to your customers. We need to know what they think about the technology. Is this really going to change their life? If it's not going to change their life, it doesn't matter how attractive the team is. It doesn't matter how high the transaction count is. We are not investing, because for us, the tech needs to translate to impact in real people's lives. And so I think that's the real lens that people have to take when it comes to technology investing. What impact is it having on people's lives?
You've been doing this for a couple of years now, and maybe I can ask the question this way. What would you say to your younger self in terms of lessons learned and what you potentially would have done differently?
Do hard things. I think that, we did a lot of hard things when we were young, but I feel like, my younger self sometimes shied away from things that were very difficult and didn't push us hard for them because we felt like it wasn't for Africans to do that. I remember back in the day, we had this big vision to build the largest technology hub in the world. And we had the clout to do it. We had and I think at the end of the day, we looked at it and we're very discouraged by a lot of the reactions we got, even from our countrymen. And we decided that, maybe this is not the kind of thing we should do. And my life took a different path, and we did build other hard things. But I felt like, if I was speaking to my younger self, I would be encouraging myself to find the hardest, most difficult problem that I could possibly be involved in solving and take the hardest path possible to solving them.
Talking about hard paths and success, Andela, obviously one that you're associated with, it has hit that unicorn status. So congratulations on that. And it seems that appears to be the end game for most people going into tech. So I just wanted to hear your perspective about, just chasing that status. Maybe not necessarily your experience, but what would you say to those who believe that tech is the way to a lot of wealth for them?
I think it's important to understand where the unicorn excitement comes from. I remember when I was coming up in the industry, it was actually a taboo. You were laughed out of rooms for saying that you could build $1 billion tech company. They had a lot of very good excuses for why Africans could not aspire to unicorn status, and then we did it. And so I feel like we've crossed that bridge and it's done, and that's it. And for me, it's never really been a big deal. I think for me, what matters more is unicorn impact, right? Can we touch 1 billion people's lives? It's not about can we make $1 billion. Making $1 billion is it's cool, but it's it's like whatever, Now it's about, can we build products that can touch 1 billion people's lives? And that's where, I would hope that most of my colleagues can take that glass ceiling, because, now it's not remarkable for you to be a unicorn. It used to be, but now it's people have done it before. So I'm challenging my colleagues to move past unicorn status and start thinking about unicorn impact.
So in terms of chasing that unicorn status, if I can come back to that point, would you say there's a formula to it? Because every time I engage tech entrepreneurs these days, I get the sense that they are trying to do that first round, second round, and hopefully by the time they're doing a third round of fundraising, they've hit $1 billion. What's your view on the formula, if there is one, getting there?
Yeah, I mean, I continue to say the biggest, most important thing to do is to focus on impact. So it seems rich to say that, because a lot of people would say, well, did you focus on impact when you got $1 billion? But what I've learned really is that, when you build a business that is transforming people's lives in a visible way, right? At Andela, we took people's incomes from $100 a month to $100,000 a year, right? At Flutterwave, we helped 1 million Nigerian businesses go online. When you're building a business that's transforming people's lives, right? There is no question at all that you're going to create a lot of value. You're going to make a lot of money. And because you're making a lot of money, investors just follow the money. So if you build a product that puts $1 in 1 billion people's pockets, $1 every day in 1 billion people's pockets, right? That's $1 billion every day. Can you imagine people not investing? Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it's almost impossible, right? It's going to be a $350 billion revenue, quote unquote, or even just cap company. And even if all you're taking from that $350 billion is 10 cents, right? 10 cents. That's a $3.5 billion revenue company, right? So why not just focus on impact? Right?
Got it.
Why focus on anything else? So if you're just doing financial engineering in the hopes that you can then grow, it doesn't work. And that's why it's necessary for you to focus on impact.
Focusing on impact, that is the formula. And if I can just get your thoughts on this point, obviously fintech has been a big focus for a lot of tech entrepreneurs. But what, in your view, is the next big thing in the tech space?
Ironically, I tend to think that the next big thing is talent. Our human capital is heavily underinvested in compared to the opportunities that exist with technology. So when you think about, what is going on in the industry today, you've got a $5 billion technology investments in technology businesses. So the big question is, where's the talent? But to build the talent, you need to build infrastructure, because talent has to be somewhere. They can't just be in the ether. You have to build connectivity, you have to build data centers, you have to build living quarters, you have to build workplaces and workspaces that can enable them to be productive. You have to create devices. So talent, in my opinion, is the biggest. Infrastructure is another big follow-up point that needs to be doubled down on and increase. And then the last one is governance, right? So if you think about the government today, our government, by virtue of just all revenue shrinking, it doesn't even matter whether, we just cannot sustain the government as it's currently run, right? In terms of cost, in terms of revenue generation, and so on and so forth. So we need to be able to invest deeply in governance mechanisms, digital governance, things like that, revenue generating digital governance mechanisms that allow for government to start making revenue from people that it serves rather than from just oil.
No, interesting point you're making there. Although many of the things you speak of, in my mind, are not necessarily what a tech entrepreneur will be chasing, like an agri-tech or insure tech. But I hear you all the same. But on to another point, you mentioned governance. And to some extent, a part of that is regulators. And I wanted to hear your thoughts about regulators coming late to the party quite often and potentially really just stifling the growth that an entrepreneur is trying to make. How do you see that potentially stopping innovation moving forward?
I think my point of view is that oftentimes the conversation around regulation is not as nuanced as it should be. So it's often pitted as regulators are trying to stop innovation, and then entrepreneurs are trying to advance innovation. But when you're governing a state, innovation is not the most important thing, right? The most important thing is that citizens are thriving. Citizens are safe using the product. Citizens are protected when they use the product. So this is super, super important. And I feel like the problem that we have really in our regulatory space is that innovators are not being, regulators do not have the same information innovators have about where the market is going. So as a result, they're hampered in the ability to not only regulate, but even understand what is going on and how it can be leveraged to better support society. So their default is to shut it down. And that's the problem. That's the real problem that we're having. So I think what needs to happen is there needs to be some former entrepreneurs or innovators who go into government and into the regulatory spaces. So they know that, oh, if this business is doing X, this is what they're trying to get done. This is how it could be harmful to the state and to the people who the state is focused on protecting. And then we can now decipher between the wheat and the chaff. So I look at the example of blockchain and the central bank's reaction to it. So yes, pure play blockchain might be dangerous. You understand what I'm saying? But, currency, digital ledger currency can be beneficial because it gives the state a bit more control over currency and money supply and so on and so forth. So, you can embrace digital ledger technology and reject cryptocurrency, right? If you know what you're doing. So that's an example of how a regulator can adapt because they have knowledge to be able to then appropriately regulate.
Indeed, knowledge changes everything. But coming back to your view of the opportunity, not just in Nigeria, but in Africa and globally, what's your view of Africa as a stage for tech entrepreneurship?
I think when you think about, for me, I like to look at the big numbers, right? So if you think about Africa over the next 30 years, you're asking yourself one major question, right? What kind of future can technology enable across the world, and where would it have the most impact, right? If you're a venture capitalist like I am. And the reality is it's very difficult to answer that question without coming to Africa, without having a conversation about Africa, right? Because, Europe is having its challenges, both with growth and with peace. Asia is having its challenges with population growth and with democracy, right? You can go all over the world like that, and you see that societies are going through incredible upheaval, as we are. But what we have on our side is time. We've got a young population that is digital first, whether we like it or not, that has the capacity to learn how to do things, and most importantly, doesn't have the legacy, the millstone, of legacy infrastructure, systems, processes that are built on the old world. And so I think it's really important for us to start to think along those lines. What role would new technologies play in the global future? And where is it most likely for those technologies to be adopted? And the reality is Africa is the frontier.
Got it. Before we let you go in, just some closing thoughts. I do know that you're into venture capital for tech, and that's your project, Future Africa. And I guess that's perhaps a good way to introduce you and to provide some advice to those who are looking for financing for tech ventures. What would you say to your top tips?
Well, the Fund for Africa's Future, which is also known as Future Africa, is a business that what we do basically is that we support as early as possible mission-driven founders that are building solutions to hard problems in large markets. So we're not like a typical bank, or like we're not a typical kind of finance firm or finance house. We don't lend to small businesses. We mostly do equity investments, and we do equity investments in business we call innovation-driven enterprises. So these are companies that are building technologies that are highly disruptive, and that are deep, that are solving real problems. And then small businesses can leverage those tools to then serve the broader country or the broader community. And we've been responsible for investments in Andela and Flutterwave and all your greats, right? Move and so on and so forth because of this model of investing. Now, when you're thinking about getting funding, I think it's important for you to define the kind of business that you are, because I see small businesses going to get money from a firm like us, which is likely to end up in disappointment, right? Or I see, an established business with real cash flows, trying to get venture capital, which is bound to end in tears for everybody involved. So the question needs to be, what kind of business are you? Are you a small business? If you're a small business, then that's fine. If you're bigger, if you're a commercial business, that's fine. If you're an innovation-driven enterprise, meaning you've got some differentiated, groundbreaking technology that is necessary, you need to use to be able to build a platform that other people can then leverage in order to make people's lives easier, so on and so forth, then we're the right partner for you. So that's kind of more or less how I think about it. What kind of business are you, and who should you be talking to for financing?
Thank you very much. I think we can end this on that note. And that has been our conversation with Iyinoluwa Aboyeji, tech entrepreneur, now venture capitalist, providing some financing for the next big thing, hopefully, on the African continent. And on that note, that ends our conversation for this week. And we look forward to having you again for the next edition of Build Your Own Business.
This is Build Your Own Business, powered
by Oze. Make money with Oze.